Good morning. This is Tommy Norris of greenprisons.org and want to welcome all of you back again to what is the sixth in our webinar series on sustainability and corrections. This webinar series is provided free of charge by Green Prisons to the corrections community, and we hope you'll share the word about it and encourage others to participate. This morning we've got about 60 participants, including 2 county agencies, about 14 states represented, along with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and plus or minus, based on emails, probably about 8 or 10 vendors. Many of you are people that have participated with us before, and we appreciate you coming back. And we've got some new folks. So we welcome all of you to this sixth broadcast. This morning we're going to talk about HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And this morning's conversation is going to focus on 3 areas primarily. Looking at HVAC specifically with some alternatives to traditional forms of heating and cooling. How to get the most out of your HVAC contract and that renovation, particularly programmatically. And we're going to revisit one system that was able to do some very unique things. And finally, how do you finance these things in this world of very few dollars for those of us who work in this business? It seems like that there's no way to get started on this, when in fact there are. And I notice we've got several folks with us from a couple of the ESCOs, the energy service companies, and I would encourage them when we get to that part of the conversation to chime in. I do want to mention that this series, this what amounts to 7 webinar series that we started back up again in January, is based on a work of Paul Sheldon and Jean Atherton and their work to establish 7 steps to sustainability that was published in the new NIJ report on sustainability and corrections. This is probably the definitive work. As many of you know, and I've mentioned previously on these webcasts, there's not a lot of literature out there yet about what's going on in corrections and what we're doing. And greenprisons.org is trying to contribute to that conversation, but probably nobody has done it better than Paul and Jean in their published work. That is available. That publication is available for a free download at greenprisons.org, as well as a number of other websites. So we encourage you, if you have not read that, it's a quick read, it's an interesting read. It gives you a little more background on the kinds of things that we've been talking about here, and we sincerely encourage you to kind of take a look at this. This month we're going to take a slightly different approach to the discussion on HVAC. Those of you who regularly participate will recall that we typically have 2 or 3 agencies that we focus on and ask them to tell their stories. What we're doing this month in an effort to find what approach to these webinars seem to work best for you is to encourage you to participate and share your experiences as we hit on some of these topics rather broadly. We will be talking about some specific agency approaches, but we don't have those representatives formally here. But again, would encourage you as we go forward in the webinar to either ask questions or share an approach that you've used in your agency to make some changes there. The way this is done typically is you look at this, is if you look at your dashboard, you have a raise your hand function. And I encourage you, if you want to make a comment or raise your hand, to click on that. And ideally type a few words into the question box so it will let us know what your questions are. You can just put that right into the box marked question. This month, as I mentioned, instead of holding off on questions until the end of the webinar, we'll go ahead and take those as they come. What I'll tell you is that I'm flying quasi-solo this morning, so it may not be quite as smooth as we've done this in the past. But with a little patience, I think we can give folks an opportunity to participate actively in this month's presentation. Again, we don't anticipate the webinar will go much more than 45 minutes. And if you hear something that particularly interests you or see a slide that you'd like to take another look at, the webinar will be archived on greenprisons.org and probably by this weekend. So you can go there and not only see this webinar and review it, but the other 5 webinars that have preceded it. So again, your participation is encouraged, and as we get started, and just be sure and click the little raise your hand icon so that we know there's a question out there. The whole notion of HVAC and making changes in systems, as Paul and Jean wrote their text, this one came right after energy. And one of the major issues here is this is obviously a big ticket item. We're going to talk primarily about this morning about biomass, but would like to hear from you if you've explored other kinds of HVAC systems. This slide is from a presentation that the Bureau of Prisons did last fall with us on best management practices. And you'll note as you look at this, the Bureau is under a mandate from the Department of Justice to reduce its energy footprint and its and to operate in a more sustainable fashion. Period. And the leading effort that they're making there is the installation of biomass boilers. The kind of changes and the impact that these biomass boilers have significantly reduced their footprint around the country. They've also used solar. They're looking at other kinds of ways to heat water, to provide for heating and cooling, and biomass boilers are leading the way there. This little drawing, courtesy of Wikipedia, sort of gives you a feel for how the biomass process works. And I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, profess to be an expert on this, and I notice from some of the folks that are on board with us that there are a number of people who do know this much better than I do, and would encourage them to participate when they get the chance. But in any event, this sort of gives you a feel, and you'll note that whatever the fuel that goes into this biomass is grown. It's all biological stuff, and you can take advantage of that. If you look at the, I note that the system that you're looking at now is part of the biomass boiler system at the Putnamville Correctional Facility in Indiana. If you attended the symposium that we held in Indy last year, you would have had a chance to see this very high-tech piece of equipment at work, and the kinds of changes that it's made in their operation have been significant. The system itself was originally supposed to be powered by corn, but as corn became more expensive, the system was forced to switch to another biological medium to make it work. They went from corn to wood chips and began, initially they purchased their wood chips, but eventually switched to the waste product from a pallet operation that they had ongoing at Putnamville, so that they achieved savings in more than one arena, primarily by the use of the wood chips and the waste that came off of the pallet operation that ultimately became fuel for the boiler. As a result of this, they've been able to generate revenue not only from their pallet operation, but in addition to that, have come up with a 32% savings in their steam load as a result of the use of the biomass boiler and fueling it from the waste of the pallet factory. The financials that you're looking at now are from the Virginia Department of Corrections, who also participated with us earlier in the year, and they specifically looked at a project that they did with Johnson Controls, again to introduce biomass and to look at more cost-effective ways to heat and cool their buildings. If you'll note on the chart, the orange-colored graphic suggests their costs prior to their utility costs prior to the renovation, and the fact that they realized almost a $2 million savings in utility costs over the course of the next year based on that that renovation. A couple of things that are really very significant about the Virginia operation is that they were actively involved in a number of ways in the development of that RFP, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you'd like to learn more about either the Indiana Bureau of Prisons or the Virginia renovations, I encourage you again to go back to Green Prisons and check out those archived webinars for these three facilities. You'll get more detail and depth there. One of the pieces that came out of the Virginia renovation, they wrote into the contract with Johnson Controls the creation of an HVAC training center, basically a facility to teach inmates, staff and inmates really, how to manage and maintain these new high-tech training systems. The realities are that none of these systems will operate by themselves, and the need to perform regular preventive maintenance is critical to achieve the amount of savings out of them that manufacturers intend and on which the purchase savings are predicated. And the advantage of this training center is that it provides not only trained maintenance workers to maintain the equipment while incarcerated, but it trains these men when they go out for green-collar jobs and the opportunity to work in a new and emerging industry with skills that in many cases some in the outside workforce are still developing. So it's an opportunity to take advantage of that and make use of it. I think I've got a question here. I'm trying to figure out how to get to it, and I'll do that momentarily. Okay, I think that was...
Can I help you?
Here we go. There was a question here. I'm not sure who it's from. Wondering if there was anybody from Massachusetts who could talk about the Bridgewater Correctional Facility. I don't believe we've got anybody from Massachusetts. Would the person who either posed the question or we've got an open mic somewhere, but if the person who either posed the question or...
I'm going to unmute Paul so he can maybe address it.
Okay.
Paul, are you there?
I'm here.
Questions?
Yes, I was just wondering if there was anyone on the line today from Massachusetts who can talk about Bridgewater Correctional Complex, where they installed a very extensive biomass boiler system, and which with other upgrades is projected to save $27 million over its lifetime.
I don't think we've got anybody from Massachusetts, as I mentioned before. Is there anybody else who might know about that?
It's among other features, it's a combined heat and power system that generates heat and generates electricity at the same time, making much better use of the waste heat.
Okay, we'll assume there's not. If anybody hears about that, though, we would love to feature it on Green Prisons on our website, and you can always share that information with us after the fact, and we'll put it up there. We'll go ahead and return to the slide a minute, because the piece that I think is so important to come out of the Virginia piece is not only how you pay for it, but how you make these things happen in general. HVAC systems and renovations of anything related to them can be a very, very expensive proposition, frequently running in the millions of dollars. And you've heard us talk before about performance contracting on these webinars. But that seems to be the methodology of choice for many agencies these days to get work done that systems ordinarily are not going to have the capital money to do. I would encourage all of you that as you make the decision systemically to begin to move forward on a project like this, that you get actively involved in the development of the request for proposal, and get your program people involved in writing these things as well. Don't assume that a vendor of whatever kind, whether we're talking HVAC or laundry detergent or anything else, necessarily knows our business and knows what our priorities are. You can always take advantage of these things to ideally bring to play training programs like the Virginia program, where you can not only provide inmates new skills, but also keep inmates busy. The Indiana operation at Putnamville employs a number of inmates not only in the operation and maintenance of the boiler, but also does the same is true for the operation of the pallet repair function that generates the fuel for the boiler. And by having the boiler operation fired by the pellets, it's increased their pallet operation So they've actually increased their revenue stream across the board. So it's important that you be involved, and that you involve program staff, financial staff, so that everybody's clear about how these things are going to get handled on the back end. Many of the performance contracts are used to pay for the cost of the renovation, but those savings won't be realized unless the equipment is maintained. And most providers of those services will gladly, if asked, incorporate the cost of that training and or development of a center like the one in Virginia up front, to ensure that you stay a happy customer and want to repeat the project in other institutions as you move forward. It doesn't do the company any good if you're not realizing the savings that they promised you would. But again, if they don't know our system and what some of our challenges are in terms of having trained staff in the numbers that it takes to accomplish that maintenance, very frequently everybody ends up disappointed when it doesn't have to happen that way. So I encourage you to get involved in that process and take advantage of it, and to explore performance contracting, or it's called different things, but fundamentally it's working with a vendor to pay for the renovation or the new equipment without any upfront dollars. And it's easier to do in some states than it is in others, and it's very much dependent upon your legislature and the initiative of the agency in many instances. Anybody got any questions or comments at this point? We haven't had much here, and I know this isn't a perfect medium for a discussion group, but if you've had some experience with one or more of these processes or projects, now's would be a great time to share your experience. And if I know we've got another number of people on from Indiana, Louisiana, places that have done these projects. If I've butchered it too badly, or if you have other observations that you'd like to share with us, now would be a good time to do that. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody that's got any other questions or comments here, or has their hand raised. So we're gonna move from this to a brief discussion about the upcoming symposium that's going to be held in Indiana again, this time right outside of Indianapolis, on October 29th through November the 1st. We're currently seeking presentations. There's a call for presenters out that's available on the website, but we would particularly like to have presentations from presenters to talk about your experiences in this brave new world of sustainability and corrections. Last year we had 26 workshops, I believe. We would like to come close to doubling that this year. So we're in need of presenters. If your workshop proposal is selected for presentation, your registration for the conference is complimentary. This year we'll be providing 3 lunches, as well as reception in the evening. So a lot of your meal requirements are taken care of. New hotels available this time that are at or below the government rate for that area, which means the rooms will be about $40 cheaper than they were last year. And that should help to make it a lot easier across the board. Current lodging is at $67 or $77 a night, single or double. So this will be one of the least expensive training experiences you can have in the coming year. Again, October 29th through November the 1st. We'll also be taking another tour of an Indiana facility. I believe it will be the facility at Pendleton. For those of you who are familiar with that system, this is the old reformatory, and they've done some really marvelous things up there, sort of belying the argument that an institution can be too old to have any success with. You got to have a shiny new institution to make this stuff work, and the folks in Indiana have proven that's not the case at all. So we encourage you to come participate in that, ideally present, and hopefully have 2 real good days of training while you're with us. The other thing I'd like to draw to your attention is the North American Association of Wardens and Superintendents have their upcoming conference in Springfield, Missouri next month. Green Prisons will be there. We'll have a booth in the exhibit hall, and we will also be making a presentation at that conference. So we encourage you to consider going to Springfield. They've got a very full agenda. If you have any interest in correctional health care, it's being done in conjunction with the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, the first prison hospital operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And there will also be a large contingent from the military, the disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth will have a large number of MPs, as well as Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. A lot of folks representing the U.S. military. So we encourage you to join us there. If you register for that conference prior to April the 1st and mention Green Prisons, you can save $25 off your registration fee. So we encourage you to come see us in Springfield and share that experience. Finally, I'm not seeing any. Let me make sure I don't have any other questions. Finally, I do need to make one announcement, that although we're scheduled to run webinars up through October, at this juncture, the webinar that we're going to do next month on materials management will be the last one in the series, unless we can get some sponsorship. It's been a little expensive to continue to do this, so we're hoping that between now and the end of April, we can get some sponsorship for that. But if we don't, we may have to suspend these, excuse me, until we do. So if you know anybody who would like to help support this effort, let us know. We also will be doing, as I mentioned, the webinar in April, which will be on April the 11th. We'll look at materials management, and that will include excuse me, cleaning materials, recycling, composting, use of green cleaning agents, compliance with the new standard, etc. So April will be a major, or will be an important webinar for us, and we hope to continue with the ones in May, June, and July, depending on whether or not we can secure some support for that. So I'll call one more time for questions. And if there are none, I would ask you to, be sure and check out our blog. By virtue of the fact that you're registered online here, you will be receiving our newsletter if you aren't already getting it. And at the end of the webinar, there will be an evaluation that we encourage you to complete and share with us, and share your thoughts and impressions about how we can make these better. With that in mind, I want to thank you for joining us today and look forward to talking to you again on April the 11th.